if someone identifies a fungus gnat infestation, what should be the first thing they do? And what are some effective treatment options?
So the first thing you want to do is make sure it's really a fungus gnat. Unfortunately, and I love a lot of you guys out there, but you should not be making like documents and IDing things online unless you know what you're doing. And unfortunately, there's a lot of pictures of fungus gnats out there that are aphids. And this is a big confusion point. Or they could be moth flies, or they could be shore flies. And so you really have to make sure it's truly a fungus gnat to begin with. You can get some of these other flies popping up if you are using more organic nutrients. Trying to choose my words carefully because I don't want anybody yelling at me. But, if you're getting like organic mattery stuff and throwing it in there, there's more food for things to feed on. And fly larvae, a lot of them are decomposers. And they may not be necessarily so much of an issue, but that ID is critical. And I always kick myself after I do this. If you're unsure, you can always send me a picture and I will do my best to get back to you as fast as possible. I am on a plane almost every single week going somewhere on this planet, running between flights, running between facilities, running between teaching classes. But I try to help anybody that's reached out to me. And real quick, I can tell you in half a second if it's a fungus gnat or it's a shore fly or a moth fly or a drain fly. And then you can choose the appropriate measure. But if you know it's a fungus gnat and they do eat your roots and they do vector pathogens, they can vector fusarium, and that is one of the big pest issues in medicinal crops. It does vector it, so you do want to get them under control. So, A, control your water. That's always number one. It's not that they like it super wet, nor do they like it super dry, but generally fungus gnats are pretty happy in the same moisture that plant are growing in. Number two, I always recommend mass trapping. Sticky cards. Sticky cards can trap a lot of fungus gnats for you. I don't sell them, but I have to say I love the Catchmaster sticky cards. I have a lot of my commercial growers using them. They've been doing all kinds of special shapes for different industries, fitting their needs. They have been really awesome. And in fact, I did a poster for them with what things look like when they're on sticky cards to help with ID. If you contact them, they'll send you a poster or they give them away free at events all the time. But mass trapping, that trapping is only going to get the adult. To kill the larva, number one, beneficial nematodes, hands down. They work really well. They'll move through the soil. They can detect the CO2 emissions from fungus gnat larvae. It's easy peasy. I always call nematodes the gateway drug into biocontrol because nematodes are so easy to use. You can put them in a backpack sprayer. You can put them in a blower. You can put them in a watering can. You can mix them up and apply them lots of different ways. BASF has some really good directions on how to use them. They even have a sheet designed that was developed for interior scapers that if you want to put them in a pump-up sprayer, it actually tells you, like when you put X amount of nematodes in there, you add your water, how many pumps on the trigger you need per what size of pot to make sure you get those nematodes out there. And remember, if it's a soil surface, you got to get nematodes covering that whole surface. Don't just squirt them in one spot because they can only travel so far. So you need to cover that whole soil surface. So nematodes are probably in commercial greenhouse production, probably the number one thing used for fungus gnat management. Next, you can use rove beetles. They will absolutely gobble up those fungus gnat larvae. But keep in mind, we talked about before that in certain crops, medicinal crops, you may not want them around later in the crop because if their numbers get too high. Stratiolaelap skimnotus, which is a soil-dwelling predatory mite, is another easy one to use, and you can just kind of sprinkle those in the soil surface, and those kind of just establish in the soil. The rove beetles, the mites, and the nematodes all will double dip because not only will they control fungus gnats, they will also control thrips pupa in the soil, which I generally don't get too worried about thrips in cannabis, but I see a lot of onion thrips in cannabis. But this can help with that problem too. So, they're not just focused on doing one thing in the soil. They can control other insects in the soil. From an economic standpoint, the insects and the nematodes themselves are not expensive. What is expensive is the shipping. And there are pop-up groups with tropical foliage hobbyists in a lot of cities like DC and Minneapolis, where one person now is placing the order for a bunch of people, and then everybody comes and just picks them up at their house. And then that saves a lot on shipping costs. And that is kind of grown by leaps and bounds. There's tons of Facebook groups now that people group order bugs, and then they can even break up like some of the sachets, because often the minimum order for sachets is 100, and home growers don't need 100, but you can divide them a group of people, so you're not paying a crazy price with ordering them. Now, the one last option is you can use BT, Bacillus thuringiensis, and it's Israeliensis is the actual subspecies on there. It is a toxin from a bacteria. It is not actually the bacteria you're putting. It's a toxin from the bacteria that fly larvae ingest, and it basically gives them a really bad stomach ache, and they go septic and die. It works so well. It's what they use for aerial spraying for mosquito larvae. It's sold as mosquito dunks, but mosquito dunks does have a houseplant label now. It's also sold as natural. That's the commercial product. It's great. It doesn't harm any of the other beneficials. Way awesome, blah, blah, blah. It was so great. Everybody used it all the time for everything. So we actually have resistance problems with it now. Because again, it's not an actual bacteria. It's a toxin that you're putting out. So you can build resistance to it. So it's not something you want to keep on that treadmill of using over and over again. I mean, if you're at home, you're using it a couple times a year, no big deal. But for commercial production, you just cannot drench that weekly. You will develop resistance.
This clip is brought to you by VivoSun. Use discount code MrGrow15 to save on any of their gardening products. Go to the full episode by clicking the outro card here, or click the link in the description section below. Catch you in the next video.